Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Nine Sim. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. If you are not following this beautiful woman, please go follow her. So she was talking about Arab slave trade. And one thing I do not, or sometimes we do not talk so much about is Arab slave trade. And you all know how horrible and horrific it was. And still, one thing I'm going to tell us is that Arab slavery is still very much going on. It never stopped. It evolved. It is still here on the ground. If you think I am joking, go to some African countries and see how they have penetrated into those countries. I remember telling you people sometime that Saudi Arabia, right, once asked Burkina Faso that they want to build 200 mosques. Tell me how they want to build 200 mosques for Burkina Faso, right? When there are so many things to be done in Burkina Faso, the roads, amenities, hospitals, acquisition skill centers, and all schools, a lot to be done. But they are proposing to build mosque, so they will be able to penetrate into the country. Now, I am going to say this. Arab slave trade is still going on today. And one thing I am going to say is that the Arab slave trade was very brutal. When I say very brutal, we do not talk enough of what they did and how they are still in some countries. Well, you know what? Let's get into this.
So when I talked about chattel slavery initially and focused on the transatlantic slave trade, I saw some of y'all trying to check me. And listen, if you thought I left something out, you're right to speak on it. Because if I'm going to talk about Black displacement, I can't leave out how we were trafficked across every direction, not just the Atlantic. But let's be very clear. There were no untruths in what I said. What I shared was one part of a much bigger system. So today I'm going to break down the other part, one they rarely talk about, the Arab slave trade. Most of us are taught about the transatlantic slave trade, right? Where European nations kidnapped and enslaved over 12 million Africans and shipped them to the Americas. But long before that started, another massive slave system was already in place, the Arab slave trade. This began around the 7th century, just after the rise of Islam, and it lasted for over 1,200 years. That's twice as long as the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans, estimates say anywhere from 10 to 20 million, were taken from East, Central, and parts of West Africa and sold across North Africa, the Middle East, Persia, the Arabian Peninsula, and even parts of India, Pakistan, and Southeast Asia. Here's the key thing. This wasn't one single trade route. It was a whole network made up of two major routes that we're going to break down next. So we're going to talk about the trans-Saharan slave trade, which is just the first part of the Arab system. The trans-Saharan slave trade, it involved moving enslaved people north, across the Sahara Desert, into places like Egypt, Libya, Morocco, and Tunisia. And this was done through caravans, which, if you don't know, included huge groups of camels and traders moving through brutal desert conditions. People walked for hundreds of miles in chains without enough water or food. Thousands died just trying to get to the slave market. So who were the victims? Most were young boys and girls from places like Mali, Niger, Chad, and Sudan. The boys were often castrated and made to serve in royal palaces, harems, and courts. The girls were sold as concubines, house servants, and entertainers. The violence was extreme, but so was the erasure. Most of these people never got the chance to build families. Many never made it out of servitude. And because they were often forced to assimilate, their history was wiped out. No records, no surnames, no lineage left behind. So Route 2, under the Arab system, is the Indian Ocean slave trade, which ran east, not north. This route took people from East Africa, places like Tanzania, Kenya, Mozambique, and Madagascar, and shipped them across the Indian Ocean to the Arabian Peninsula, Iran and Iraq, parts of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, even Indonesia and southern China. This trade lasted over 1,000 years. And just like the Trans-Saharan route, it focused on Black labor, sexual exploitation, and military service. In India and Pakistan, enslaved Africans became soldiers, guards, palace staff, or enslaved women for royal households. Many of their descendants are actually still there today, but they're often marginalized and forgotten. So why don't we hear about this as much as we hear about the transatlantic? One word: erasure. Many enslaved men were castrated, so they couldn't have families. Others were absorbed into Arab and Asian societies, renamed, converted, and stripped of all identity. There was no diaspora like we see in the Americas, because so many people were intentionally erased. And because Arab and Muslim societies never really publicly confronted their role in slavery, there's no global reckoning, no memorials, no documentaries, no widespread education, just silence. So yeah, I focused on the transatlantic slave trade in my last video, because that's our direct link, especially here in the Americas. But if we're talking about Black displacement and stolen lives, we do have to talk about all of it. The Arab slave trade, the Trans-Saharan route, the Indian Ocean route. 3 names, 1 system. One long history of Black people being stolen, used, erased, and never properly accounted for. So we honor them, even the ones we don't know. Because we're not just survivors of one trade. We're survivors of every direction they dragged us. And the world still owes all of us answers. Before we start, this story is heavy. It's not easy to hear, and it's not supposed to be. If you need a minute, take it. We'll see you in the next one. They told you slavery was a sad story, a tragedy, something you could learn about for 5 minutes, pass a quiz, and move on. They lied. Slavery wasn't sadness. It was terror, blood, and survival stitched into the soil of this country. In the 1930s, the U.S. government tried to document living memories of slavery. They expected nostalgia, but instead they got horror, and they buried most of it. Sarah Goodger, born around 1816, remembered it clearly. She said night and day, it was all work. No rest, no play. The lash was going all the time. Work till you dropped. Dreams beaten out before they could even form. Fountain Hughes, born in Virginia, said in his own voice, "When we were slaves, we belonged to people. They sold us like they sell horses and cows and hogs. Owned, used, discarded." And then there's Millie Barber, who told a truth so sharp, it'll leave you bleeding if you listen closely. "Well, my pa belongs to one man, my ma belongs to another. 4 or 5 miles apart, cause some confusion, mix-up, and heartaches. My pa have to get a pass to come see my mama. And he comes sometimes without the pass. Controllers catch him way up the chimney hiding one night. They stripped him right before my mom and gave him 39 lashes, with her crying and hollering louder than he did. Let that sit for a minute. You needed permission to love. You needed permission to see your family. And if you didn't have it, they beat you half to death in front of the people that you loved the most. And somehow America still wants to tell this same old story like it was complicated. The real slave narratives aren't about loyalty. They're not about singing in the fields or kind owners. They're about blood, terror, chains, and survival that roared louder than a whip ever could. You hear me? The next time somebody tries to hand you a whitewashed version of our history, remember that our ancestors didn't crawl through hell just for their stories to be silenced. They screamed it into the roots of this land. And we're the ones that are carrying their voices forward, loud, fierce, and impossible to bury again. Every time I talk about history, especially the ugly parts, there's always that one person in the comments like, why can't we just move on? Or why do you hate America so much? You can just leave. And to that, I say, you don't want to move on. You just want me to stop talking. Because if we were really over it, y'all wouldn't be grilling hot dogs in the name of a war from 1776. Let's talk about this fantasy y'all have where history is just over because it's uncomfortable to hear. Y'all say we should get over slavery, but you celebrate the Revolutionary War every year with fireworks and beer like it happened yesterday. You say Black people should stop bringing up segregation, but you'll wear a powdered wig to reenact the Boston Tea Party. You say we shouldn't dwell on the past, but you hang flags on 9/11 like a sacred ground and treat the Alamo like a church. So which is it? Is history important, or is it only important when you get to feel proud? We talk about atrocities, slavery, genocide, sterilization, internment camps, and lynchings, not because we're stuck in the past, but because the past is still shaping the present. Black neighborhoods are still underfunded. Native land is still being stolen. Prison labor is modern-day slavery. And the kids in Gaza are paying for policies that started decades before they were born. You cannot heal from a wound that you won't name. And the moment you say that was a long time ago, some law gets passed, some curriculum gets banned, And we're reminded that it's not over, it just evolved. You say, let's just celebrate the 4th of July. Cool, you're celebrating freedom that wasn't given to everybody. You say it's just Thanksgiving, it's about being thankful. Yeah, thankful for what? Land theft, broken treaties, smallpox blankets? You want the food, the fireworks, the flag, but not the facts. And that's the problem. The people who I'm talking to don't actually love history. They love a version of it, cleaned up, whitewashed, and gift wrapped in nationalism. Learning about atrocities doesn't make us angry. It makes us informed. It makes us resistant to propaganda. It helps us recognize the patterns when they try to repeat them. And it gives us a compass, so we stop walking in circles pretending that it's progress. So no, I'm not moving on, because this country hasn't. But the minute that it does, I'll be the first to light up a sparkler and sit down for a piece of pie. But until then, we're going to keep naming what they buried, because the truth doesn't expire, and freedom, it's not real if it only fits some of us. The problem with the way they teach history is that they center the loudest voices, not the ones paying the bills. You hear about the men marching, the speeches, the declarations, but what you don't hear is that somebody was paying the rent on that revolution. Somebody was covering the costs, quietly, consistently, with no statue in her name. Let's fix that. Meet Christiana Carto Bannister, a free Black woman, a hairdresser, a philanthropist, and an abolitionist. She didn't just believe in freedom, she invested in it, funded it, protected it. And she did all that while running a business in a country who didn't even fully see her as human. Christiana was born in 1819 in Rhode Island. And like most Black women of her time, she was shut out of politics, law, and even the abolitionist spotlight. So what did she do? She built her own power. She opened multiple hair salons in Boston and Providence. She turned hairdressing into economic freedom, not just for herself, but for her community. These salons became meeting places, organizing spaces, and funding hubs. She used her money to support Black newspapers, fund her husband's art, and most importantly, to support Black Union soldiers during the Civil War. And when those same soldiers' mothers and aunties were aging with no one to care for them, Christiana built the Home for Aged Colored Women, one of the first elder care institutions founded by a Black woman for Black women. She was out here creating infrastructure, not dreaming about freedom, sustaining it. Christiana Carto Bannister wasn't behind the movement. She was beneath it, holding it up. While others got the headlines, she kept the doors open. She built institutions while fighting erasure. She turned labor into liberation. So if you really want to honor abolition, you have to remember her. Because without women like her, there is no movement. Say her name, Christiana Carto Bannister. We all know slavery was a horrific institution, but did you know that some companies and individuals quietly made fortunes from it? Let's uncover these lesser-known profiteers who cashed in big time. You ever heard of Aetna? Today they're a massive insurance company, but back in the 19th century, they made money by insuring enslaved people. Slave owners took out policy on their slaves, and Aetna would pay out if the enslaved person died. In 2002, Aetna acknowledged this dark part of their history and issued an apology. Next up, we have Bolton, Dickens and Company. It was a firm that operated in the mid-1800s, specializing in the buying and selling of enslaved people. They had offices in multiple cities, including New Orleans and St. Louis, and were known for their extensive operations in the slave trade. At their peak, the Bolton family had amassed a net worth of $2 million, a massive sum at the time, all built on the backs of enslaved individuals. You should look them up. And then we have Lloyd's of London, now a leading insurance market. But it got its start by insuring slave ships. They provided policies for ships transporting enslaved Africans, profiting from the voyages that brought human beings into bondage. In recent years, Lloyd's has acknowledged this part of their history and expressed immense regret. Apologies. These stories aren't just uncomfortable footnotes. They highlight how deeply slavery is woven.
This is all I got from this video. And you know something I feel like we don't talk a lot enough is the Arab. The Arab slave trade. That was a very horrible slave trade. Sometimes some people do not talk about it. And it started way before Islam came to abolish slavery. I don't know if they abolished, because tell me how they keep telling you that Islam abolished slavery when till this very moment, there are still in some countries, especially in Africa. Tell me how they are still in other countries, African countries, looking for a way to siphon things, gold, and all that. Because it is them coming out to tell Burkina Faso that they are going to build how many mosques for them. They would never ever want to do anything good. But they will always look for a way to manipulate you into building things that you may not need. That is mosque. How do you want to build mosque for people when the people do not have good roads? 200. They do not have good roads. They need school. They need acquisition skills. They need equipment in the hospital and all that. They will never want to do that for you. But they want to build mosque. The mosque that they will build and use it to penetrate into your country. I said what I said, and I am the one saying it. We don't talk enough about how Arabs, the evil, the things that they have done in the country, and the things they have done to also people that look like me. We don't scream about it enough. Islam codified slavery. On code. They never abolished it. The prophet and his companions and all that had slaves. They never freed slaves. And slave trade exploded so much in Islam. I said what I said. I know we have some of us who don't, like I keep saying, who don't talk enough about the evil that they did, they committed, and they are still doing in some countries. The amount of denial and justification I hear most times is unbelievable. A very big shout out to this system because she absolutely gave a very great presentation of it. Some will say Arabs are black. They just have light skin. How? How? How are they? Somali and some other countries, some other African countries, anyway, Somali and some other countries are burning today because of this reason. Some countries in Africa are burning today because of them. I am saying what I am saying. I said it. Some countries are burning today because of them. They penetrate into a country, they want to siphon everything and run away. They said they take gold from this country, from Africa. But in Africa, you cannot buy gold. The one I have was the one they gave me, a family gave me. I could not buy. I don't have. They bought for me. And it was a gift. Every other normal, I mean, like, you cannot just buy gold. It is expensive. In the same place, they buy gold. They take all the things from. If I go to their country, actually, I might be able to afford it. I might be able to afford it because it is cheaper in their country. But in my own country, if I go to Nigeria right now, I will not be able, I may be able to buy it. That is you have to save. Save. Right? You have to save to be able to buy it. But if you go to their country, not save. You can buy it. But you have to take flights to the place, won't you? And get visa too, to go there. You know, the truth is that The autonomous slave trade too, Black Sea slave trade. I will keep quiet. I don't want to say whose slave trade is worse than, but what I can say is that you see, Arab slave trade was a very horrible one. The Eritrea, the Somali, and the Ethiopian are actively involved in the Arab slave trade, yet not spoken about enough. The Arab, the Somali, and all of them. Some East Africa, when you look around, you would think that they look Arab. I am sure you all know diffusion, mixology. And some of them will stand still and tell you, I am not Africa. You know, how they are, I am not Black. I am sure majority of my people might have seen the videos where you tell them, they will tell you that they are not African. Or they will just say some nasty kind of things. They know, because they know how diffuse some certain things are. The truth is that slavery is still going on in some North Africa. I said what I said. And not until all these things are being uncovered. The slave trade was so violent because they does half of Congo speak Swahili. Slave trade. I am going to draw the curtain. Sometimes there are some things, I have chills all over as I speak. I am rubbing my skin because I am having constant goosebumps. Each time I want to talk about what is going on, most especially in Africa, if the day I will venture fully into talking about Africa, maybe in 1 month or 2 months, you might not be able to see me. That is, maybe I might be locked up or somewhere. That is one of the reasons why I try as much as I can to avoid, because a lot is happening. You might not be able to understand it, but I know where I am coming from. And I know what could happen to people that speak the truth, most especially. I still love myself. In as much as I still want to talk some certain things, I still love myself. I am not married. I am still very much single. I do not have a child. So I haven't even done anything to be missing. I will draw the curtain here. Bye for now.